Welcome back to the Unbreakable Mindset podcast with me, your host, Jude Daunt. How are you all doing? Now, I sound marginally better and I do feel a lot better in terms of my throat, but I do feel very puffy across the nose and the eyes and still feel quite heavy with it. But I'm determined that this week is the week I'm getting better and this is leaving my system. I've told the universe that that's what's happening. And I really just want to get back to the gym and get back to not feeling like I've got this head cold. So that's what we're manifesting this week, people. How have you all been? Well, this is the end of the school holidays for you that have children that have been off. So I have been juggling work and had a day off the first week and then a day off the second week. So that's kind of how much time I've been able to dedicate to school holidays. But as you all know, I have an amazing friend, Kate, who has just recently started listening to the podcast. And my question was to her, well, why did it take you so long? So she's amazing. I'm very, very lucky. As I say, I do think there's an episode where I talk about how I'm pretty sure I manifested Kate. She's just lush and her two boys are amazing and she is a teacher, so she has the school holidays off with her two little ones, which end up being three because she takes my little one as well, which is amazing. And they have done some crazy things this week with the boys, like so many adventures and climbing cat bells down at the Lake District. And yeah, so Nico's had to have quite a chilled few days with me because he's just been exhausted after doing all those amazing things with my friend Kate. So that was lush, and it's so nice when you have someone to rely on that you can trust and just think, just not even, actually, do you know what? It's not even thinking about it. Like, you're not even worried about what they're up to because you just know that that person would give your child the exact same parenting style, same care and attention as you would. So yeah, it is an absolute blessing. And I do thank my lucky stars for Kate. So that's what I am grateful for this week. I'm also grateful that I know I talk about it a lot and I'm sorry, but I'm grateful I didn't lose my voice. As bad as this being, the voice did not, like it didn't get to a point where I couldn't talk. So I do see that massively as progress. And one of the other things that I have done was, I think I told you in an episode either last week or the week before that I didn't feel like the hormones that I was getting for my HRT were working with my head. I felt very out of control of the thoughts that I was having. And what I discovered was, and I promise you this isn't a menopause episode, but it's definitely along the topic that I want to talk to you about today, which is awareness of thought, which we'll come on to. I noticed I wasn't feeling myself. Mainly at the start of the year, I would say it probably got quite bad in terms of the thoughts that I was having and how I was feeling in myself. And one of the things that I spoke to, and I go to a private clinic for my menopause, and the reason why I did that, and this is mainly one of the frustrating things, but I mean, it's all frustrating if you are in your 40s and trying to get help for menopause, was I am fully aware because of all the documentation that's out there and what's been on, you know, I think Davina McCall did stuff and there's a lot of news articles. But I know, and this is no direct go at the NHS. I love the NHS. I just don't think it's funded in the way it should be. That if I go to a GP, I don't think they're as knowledgeable as they should be on menopause and perimenopause. So just like I don't think that they are trained very well in mental health, which is why, you know, I do what I do and I help people who are struggling with anxious thoughts and mindset, because that's not what GPs are trained to do, and not even any of the subsequential help that you will then get, whether it's CBT or therapy, works either, because I just don't think there's enough money in the NHS to train them in the way where you get results with people. So anyway, long story short, I decided when I knew I was kind of heading down that route to go private. And it's not as much as you think. That does sound like, oh, well, check you out. Look at you. You can go private. It wasn't that much for the benefit that it was going to give me. So I went down that route. But what I will say is even the private clinic that I went down, it did feel like it was a one size fits all. And I don't know whether you can remember me talking about it if you're an avid listener. When I talked about it, one of the things that I really wanted to eventually get to the point of was that I would find somewhere that did natural hormone replacement therapy. And again, as I say, I know I've told you bits about it because I said I was going to see Adele and how much I believe like Adele was delivered to me by the universe, because she is not only trained so thoroughly and she's like an encyclopedia of menopause, but she also is very much an advocate of doing what we can to help our bodies help themselves in a very organic, natural way. So that really appealed to me. But one thing that I did do before I saw Adele, and this is why the timing was perfect, was I actually came off one of the tablets that I'd been prescribed through the hormone clinic that I'd been going to, because it just felt like it wasn't working for my head and it was making us feel really, really bad. So I came out voluntarily, like, or independently, one of those words. I came off it myself without consulting any NHS or the clinic that I'd been going to. And I felt so much better. I was like, oh my God, I feel like myself again, just coming off this one tablet. Now, it wasn't a long-term solution, because the tablet that I came off is a one that you have to take to counteract the other medication that you're putting on with the gel. So anyway, God, I'm so conscious that I don't want to go into too much detail, because I'm not a menopause specialist, and it's definitely not a menopause podcast. But what I want to say is that I knew instinctively that this wasn't working for me. And my goal always is to get my head in the right place, because when my head's in the right place, everything falls into place, everything aligns, my manifestations, everything feels easy when your head's in the right place. And I knew it wasn't working for me, so I decided to do something about it. And it's essentially problem solving, isn't it? But it's definitely one of the things that, when I was going through my self journey and discovery of really trying to get out of bad mental health, depression, anxiety, one of the things that I learned in my toolbox was to problem solve. If something's not right, if something's not working, what is my end goal that I'm trying to achieve? What's my workaround? So how can I work around the thing that I'm struggling with? Or what is a better solution? So that is something that applies to all areas of my life, but more importantly to my mental health. So if something's affecting my mental health, what is the solution? How can I get around it? So let's dive in to this episode. So this episode is part 2 of how to raise your vibration quickly. The reason I kept this as a part 2, because the information that I want to give to you is something that I'm very passionate about, something that I have experienced, but also what I see in the results with my clients. So let's just dive back into some of the stats that I wanted to share with you. So last week's episode, we talked about the body's frequency and how we are energy and how we vibrate at between 62 to 72 megahertz. Okay. Now, the reason why that is important in terms of manifestation is because what we're trying to do all the time is to perform at that higher vibrational energy to make manifestation easy. Okay, when we are performing at a low vibration energy, manifestation doesn't happen. We work against it because we're not at that vibrational level where we can allow it in. Now, Saying that, that's a heck of a statement, isn't it? Right? Like, there's a lot of weight in that statement that I've just said to you. But what I want you to do is to really look back over the evidence of your life. And I want you to think about when things have happened that are good and when things that have happened that have knocked you sideways. I want you to think about where you were vibrationally. Now, we can always kind of, you'll know it. You'll know where you are vibrationally because it's energy. And we can either feel really low in energy or high in energy. Now, that can look one of two ways. Low energy can look like just feeling really, maybe you're poorly, maybe you are just going through a tough time in terms of your immune system. It could be that, or the other side of it is that it could have been that you have low mood. Low mood causes low energy. So if you think about times that were really tough mentally on you, and there was things, external things going on in your life and internal things in your head, you would have been performing at a low vibrational energy. And likewise, what's happened when you've been in a good headspace? What happened externally? What vibrational things happen to you in terms of manifestation? Now, there's loads of ways in which you can do this. You could do a little timeline for yourself and go back over good things and start to really get into the headspace of where you were when that happened, and go through times when you weren't in such a good space and what happened in that space. Now, if we look on the data on this, and this was some of the data that I didn't talk about in last week's episode, was in experiments, negative thoughts lowered a person's measured frequency by 12 megahertz, and positive thoughts raised measured frequency by 10 megahertz. And it was also found that prayer and meditation can increase frequency levels as well by 15 megahertz. Okay, so really getting into that good headspace can increase between 10 and 15 megahertz. Now, from a percentage point of view, that's a lot when you think we're only ever performing between 62 and 72 when we're in a good place. So that's when we're a healthy body. We're between 62 and 72 megahertz. So to be knocked down 10, and remember that's like just a negative thought. Imagine if you're having loads of negative thoughts, how much is that lowering your mood and your energy frequency to what you are then asking in from the universe? You know, if you think about times when something bad happened, oh God, I hate saying this phrase because this was something I was brought up with. My mom would always say, bad things come in threes, right? Well, no wonder, because if something bad happens and you're already in a bad headspace, it's lowering your mood, your energy again, your vibrational energy again, and you're inviting in more things of things that you don't want. You know, how many times have you had friends where you just think, God, they've got such bad luck, like, but you also know that their energy field is very much kind of glass half empty. They're people who really only ever see the negative, the fear, the what ifs. They get stuck in their own head so much. I mean, as I'm talking, this could very well be you, and you're thinking, oh my God, that is me. And don't be ashamed of that. It just means that that's where you need to do the work. Likewise, you will have friends who are so positive and just good things happen to them all the time. And that is because of their energy frequency. They invite more in of what they want and less of what they don't want, because the head's not in that space all of the time. Now, again, as I said in last week's episode, nothing I'm telling you is new here. It's just that we have stats and evidence to back this up of how much energy we are lowering and heightening by our thought system and what we invite in. Now, examples that I have of this. I remember pain when I was just starting in my coaching business, and I really wanted to understand how to gain clients. I knew how to coach, but I'd never run a business before. I didn't really know how to attract clients. Now, if you are thinking about becoming a coach, one of the things that I have done is added that into the course, because I don't want anyone to struggle like me. So please don't let that put you off if you're thinking about becoming a coach, because I have added that in. Everything that I've learned over the years, and I've paid over £20,000 to work with business coaches, I've put into a course that you can add on if you know that's something you would struggle with. Anyway, I'm not selling the academy, I promise. I'm moving on. So I didn't know how to run this as a business. So my first investment was £5,000 into a business coach. And that was fine. I didn't really have a resistance to that. I'd managed to save up that money and it worked really well for me at that time. So therefore, my business started to increase and it felt comfortable. And then I decided to invest in another coach. Now, this was a lot of money and it was something that I wanted to get a return on investment. So I wanted to make that money back, but I also wanted to be able to do what this coach had told me, which was that it's easy to make 10K months in a coaching business. And so for that price, I had paid £12,000, I think it was, to work with this coach for 6 months. Now, that was a lot of money. It still is a lot of money. But at the time, that was a lot of money to me. And it was something that we had to take out of savings to invest in my business. Now, while I was in that group container, it wasn't working one-to-one with somebody. It was working in a group container where you would show up on a weekly basis and join a call, and you're with other coaches in there. But the other coaches in there were business coaches. They weren't working with individuals that helped them with their mindset. So their results, again, were very different to mine in terms of what their monthly income was, because they were charging people the same as what I'd paid my business coach. They were charging like 10 grand. So their figures were very different to mine, and they were finding it easy. They were finding it easy. They were selling a result where, they're saying to people, well, if you come and work with me, you can earn 10K months and it's only going to cost you 10K. There's a return on investment that people can see as valuable. And although I was doing well in my coaching business, it did feel uncomfortable being in that group container where people were making I don't know, it was crazy money what they were making, like 100K a month, right? And it was just nuts. And what I will say is that I got in a really bad negative headspace while I was in that group container where somebody was meant to be teaching me business techniques and how to scale my business and how to really stand out in the industry. And I remember actually going into quite a bad headspace while I was in there. And I noticed that when I focused on good thoughts, God, I know this is so obvious, but it has to be said. When I focused on good thoughts and why I loved my business and the work that I did with clients and who I wanted to work with, I did the results that I wanted to do. I got the clients that I wanted to work with. When I was feeling like I was in a bad headspace and I was being triggered by the other people in the group and their success of 100K, I know this sounds really weird, but I didn't want to make 100K a month. And I know who doesn't want to make 100K a month, but because the way I work and how I work with clients, it would have been impossible for me to take on that many clients to make 100 grand and to dedicate the time that I wanted to dedicate to my clients. So therefore it would have went against everything that I was doing. And the reason why I got into coaching, the reason why I got into coaching was not to make 100K a month. The reason why I got into coaching was to help people with their mindset. So it was almost like, that feeling of when you are triggered by somebody who has this, great life on the outside, but actually if you dug deep into it, you'd go, but would you want her life? And you would go, oh God, no, because I'd have to be married to that person, or I'd have to have that responsibility, or that, actually I wouldn't want that. So it was kind of like that, but it did make us feel like maybe I'm not good enough, or, it gave me bad feelings and bad thoughts, I would say, being in that group container. And I always remember one of the group sessions that we had, and she used to go around and say, has anyone got any questions? And I said, one thing I'm really worried about is that I know when I'm in a good headspace, I manifest exactly what I want that month, and it's a great month. And I know when I'm in a bad headspace, I can't, I don't earn any money. And she was like, okay. And I was like, but it's not a strategy for business. Like, where's the strategy in that? Was my frustration. Where is the strategy? Because that's not anything I'm learning. And I paid over 12 grand to work with this person to give me business strategies. And that was the only thing that I could come up with was that's not working for me. And she didn't have a response, which was really frustrating because I was paying her for business advice, not somebody who was going to go, well, yeah, just get your head in a good space. I wanted real business advice that I could then work on to build on my good headspace. So over time, I figured out in my business what I needed to do from a strategy point of view. And this is the same with any business, like whether you run a cafe or you are a nail technician, there's a certain strategy aligned to your business to be able to make money, to have an income. Now, what I will say that I now know is I run that same strategy all the time in my business. It's part of my actions to-do list, things that I do on a weekly basis, monthly basis. And it's still so apparent to me that if I'm not in a good headspace, my business doesn't do what it needs to do. And I can throw the same strategies at it and it doesn't do what it needs to do because my head needs to be in a good headspace. So I guess the woman that I paid a lot of money to was right in one sense, but also she really should have been giving us some tools of what to do. So at least I know there's a level that I've got, a coping level where I'm like, right, these are the strategies I need to put in for my business. But I also need to maintain a really good headspace all the time for me to be able to thrive in my business. So that was one of the things that I knew I needed to work on, was the fact that this medication was throwing me off. Now, the reason why I don't necessarily need to work on my limiting beliefs or anxiety triggers is because I already have those tools in place. They are already something that I do automatically. So I'm normally performing at a really good and energetic level, so that manifestation's easy. So I knew that something was off, and so I was able to problem solve. Now, if you're somebody who this has always been you, this has always been your negative thinking, that you struggle in, and you're always getting in your own way from a mindset point of view, and you feel like, do you know what, you're inviting in more of what you don't want, then this is where you need to do the work. And it's the work that I do with my clients. And again, this is another example of proof of when you are in a good headspace, things naturally happen. So when clients work with me, they're working on their anxiety triggers, their limiting beliefs, their coping levels, and as an overall, I support them to get out of their own way, not just short term, but long term. Because when you do that work, you start to understand what your triggers are, you start to understand what tools you need to put in place to get out of your own way. Now, when I'm working with clients, although I do have my Month to Manifest course, I never work on manifestation with them. And the reason being is because you can't manifest, as we've talked about in this episode, you can't manifest unless you've done the work on your head, okay? You really can't manifest if you're going into it with the same belief system that's been keeping you stuck all those years. So one of the things that I do with my one-to-one clients is I gift them Month to Manifest. So they get a space in Month to Manifest and work through the material in their own time. But I always kind of recommend that they do it possibly when they've finished working with me, because as I say, it's how many people read The Secret, but then nothing changed because it was a really good book, but then they didn't have the actions to put in place or the reprogramming of the old mindset to make anything happen. And I think when you're reading The Secret, things happen for a really short period of time while you're in that book headspace. But then things go back to the way they were because you've got muscle memory, and it takes you back to the thoughts and the patterns that you've always had if you're not doing the reprogramming that I do with my clients. And what's always so lovely, that when I've done this work with clients and I And it's so powerful, the work. Like, it's to see your clients go from, on the scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, oh my God, something amazing just happened. You got that job, or the person you love tells you they love you. That's 10. My goal is to get somebody to an 8 or a 9, where they're just in such a good headspace. They're motivated, they're positive, they're glass half full all the time. Then that's where I'm going to get my clients to every single time. Now, clients normally start with me either between a 4 and a 7. They're neither happy nor sad. They're just getting on with things. Or they're probably edging on a 3. Or even, I've definitely had clients that are at a 0, 1, and 2, where it's really hard. And depression's probably been with them for a bit of time. And when I'm working with them, not only do you get to see that they have these profound realizations of like, oh my God, like that was dead easy. So, we're getting them to do things outside of sessions that they've previously put off doing because there's a limiting belief, there's a fear. So not only are they starting to achieve things that they didn't think they could, their mood is increasing, right? So I ask every session, so tell me on a scale of 1 to 10 where we are this week. And it's a good marker for me to be able to see them increasing, but it's a good marker for them because I want them to check in with that number when they finished working with me. And it's lush because, you know what, I've just had a session with a client and we're coming towards the end of their coaching program. And I said, how are you doing on a scale of 1 to 10? And nothing's changed for him at this moment in time. He's not had a promotion, works exactly the same. But when he started with me, he was off work with depression. And one of the things he said to us was, he went, oh, do you know what? I'm probably in a really good space. He was like, I think I'm about 8 or a 9. And I was like, amazing. Tell us what's going on. And he was like, honestly, he says, Monday, I think, was like the best work day I've had. And bearing in mind, he was hungover from the weekend, which doesn't normally correlate to a good work day. He'd had one of the best work days because he'd put into place everything that we've been talking about previously. Ways to make it easy, ways to make you feel energetically alive, okay? And to work against the belief system that tells you it's not possible. So for him, he's in such a good headspace now, and the things that he used to find hard are not hard now. They're really easy. So he'll continue on that pace. And what happens for my clients who are in that space is naturally things start to happen. They tick things off their vision board. They start to achieve in a way that they hadn't known before. Like their vision board just becomes reality, and you're taking more things off your vision board and putting more things on. And it's just a lovely side effect of the work that I do with people when I'm working on their mindset, is that these things that they've previously not been able to achieve on their vision board naturally start to happen because they're in such a good headspace. Now, I've known that already. I know it with myself because when I'm in a good headspace, things are easy, things happen, work is amazing, and I achieve my business goals. And when I'm not in a good headspace, I work against them every single time. Now, I know how to get myself out of it. I mean, I didn't when I was on that medication because it was the medication working against us, but I was still able to problem solve that. And I want you to remember that. I was able to problem solve that and do some work to figure out what I needed to do to work against it, or to overcome it, or to work around it. But more importantly, for me, what I found so rewarding about doing this deep dive on frequency levels is that there was stats. I love a stat. There's stats on the fact that if you have a negative thought, you're lowering your energy frequency. If you're having a positive thought, you're increasing your energy frequency. And as I say, I see that with clients all the time when they've done their work on reprogramming their belief system, understanding what their anxiety triggers are, they naturally start achieving things on their vision board. And it is a joy to watch. And it's amazing. Like, honestly, I love it. I absolutely, can you imagine working with somebody when you've worked on getting them out of their own way and just beautiful things start to happen? And it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous little spiral kind of momentum of lovely things that start to happen. So, how can you take on board what I've asked you? And what can you do to put in practice? Because I'm all about not just listening to a podcast, but actually doing the work. I want you to look at times when you've had kind of tough things happen in your life and times when you've had really good stuff. I want you to start really looking into and doing that deep dive work on where was your headspace at in each of those areas. What do you know was coming up for you when negative things were happening versus what was coming up for you when those good things were happening? Like, where was your head space? And then I want you to start thinking about what work do you need to do on your internal thought system to start attracting more in. Because you know what? There's a real correlation between your energy, your thoughts, and what you invite in, right? If you have enjoyed this episode, please, please, please do. As always, I am going to ask of you to write me a review. It really does mean a lot. And share this episode if you found this really helpful and you know you have friends who love manifestation, who love anything mindset. Please do share this episode with them, because for me to be able to continue doing the podcast, this podcast needs to grow, because I really want to keep growing this podcast audience and sharing everything that I share with you as well. So if you've loved this podcast episode, please do write me a review. It really does mean the world. And if you know of anyone that you think would be interested, please do share this episode. Have an amazing week, everyone. I know, let's say if manifestation works, I'm going to work on my health this whole week. So let's see how I sound next week when I record the podcast episode for you. See you next week, everyone.